The Good Guy Badge is bringing you this week's wrestling recap. We're going to talk about what happened on this week's episode of the Wrestling Feuds that took place this past Friday, March 18th on Ustream. Every Friday night we'll be doing the Wrestling Feuds on Ustream. Just search Badges in the search bar and you should be able to find our show. It's called The Good Guy Badges PrimeTime. There's a few other games that we get into, so we just named it Good Guy Badges Primetime. Every Friday night, 10:30 p.m. Central Time on Ustream. Had a few guys checking it out this week, and overall is probably our best foot forward. It was a great episode. Previous episode ended with Chimpanzee Typhoon in a predicament of sorts. He had blown his big chance at WrestleMania, and he was just not looking in character. He seemed out of it, very lethargic, not in good control. And he was my guest commentator, and we went over that. We talked about what could have happened. And I proposed to him that possibly it was his manager, Fabulous Freddie Flowers, the clown, who had sabotaged him once again. We talked about drug use, and we talked about his average drug use pre-match, and then we talked about maybe what could have been different this past time. He said, as always, Freddie handed him a handful of pills, roughly about 10 pills, the average concoction of uppers and downers, opiates and barbiturates that he normally took. The problem was this time, the outcome was severely different. He was incapacitated by the end of the first match and completely out of his mind at the end of his second try. So his suggestion to me was he was confused only because he didn't think there was any concoction of drugs out there that could do that to him. He did not think Freddie Flowers had sabotaged him. We discussed the opportunity that Freddie Flowers maybe had just gotten a larger amount of money this time for this match. Obviously, now that Chimpanzee is under contract with the WWE and the Wrestling Feuds, and therefore he was buying better drugs than he's ever bought before, and maybe that seemed to be the problem. Check the show for the full detail of his drug abuse. It's actually quite entertaining and a bit hilarious, as he always is. But no, after that we discussed where Freddie Flowers went and maybe why he disappeared. Freddie Flowers could have, I suggested to Chimpanzee, placed a rather large bet on Chimpanzee's failure and then sabotaged him. Took that money, hit the road. Neither of us, nor anybody in the WWE, had been in contact with Freddie Flowers since his disappearance. Because of that, we didn't really know how to handle it, and we tried to get him on the phone the whole time, and we couldn't seem to do it. So at the very end, Freddie Flowers gives us a phone in, and he finally owns up to some of the stuff that we've been talking about. Although he was definitely beating around the bush, he did acknowledge that he was not there, and he was away on other business, and another truckload of bullshit that Freddie Flowers is very good at delivering. It was a highlight of the show, so check that out. It's towards the end of Wrestling Feuds. The video is recorded on Ustream, so the reason I'm giving this recap is if anybody missed it or if anybody wants to check it out, you can just go to Ustream and look up the recording. Like I said, it's under the Good Guy Badges. You can just search Badges, and it should come up. It's about 55 minutes, but the first 30 or 40 minutes is wrestling, and the rest is some other stuff that we're doing. So stick with it. At first, we were having trouble getting the audio switched over from the music track to the microphone, but we got it resolved pretty quickly. And some good matchups, really, some fun stuff. Chimpanzee also proposed that in 2 weeks, there will be a massive declaration of legendary status in his part, and that he will do something to accomplish that. And we're not sure what. Our conversation focused largely around John Cena. Maybe that will play into it. We do know, though, that at the end of the conversation, I was informed by WWE higher-ups that Frederick Flowers' bank account will be frozen until he returns to the WWE and answers up to his contractual obligations. And we'll see what he does next week. Tune in next Friday, 10:30 p.m., Ustream, Central Time, the Wrestling Feuds. And we're going to try to do better at taking in more questions via the chat and via Twitter. If you want to hook us up with Twitter, the username is Good Guy Badges. You can ask questions and all that stuff.